again and welcome back to the PhatPhish Guitar Studio. I'm Dave and this is another video in the series Tone Talk. A series of videos looking at guitar gear and how to get the most out of it to get the best sound for you. In this video I want to talk about specifically tone in the context of like bass, mid and treble, EQ, that sort of thing, because it's a really important factor in how your guitar sounds, particularly when you put it in the context of a band situation when you're playing with other musicians, because it's all about how your guitar sits in the overall sonic spectrum alongside other instruments, and who's fighting for what frequencies that are available. Just start off with a couple of sound examples. So today I am playing my Williams Evo Artist, got it plugged into the PV Valve King, currently on the clean channel, and down on the pedal board I've just kicked in a Boss Blues Driver. So this is a mid-range sort of overdrive pedal. So that's quite a nice tone there. Like I say, all the gain's coming from the pedal, just on the clean channel on the amp. But that's quite, to my ear, quite a bright, quite a toppy, punchy sort of overdrive pedal. Next to it on the board, I've got the full tone plimsoll. This has got a completely different sound. I've tried to set the gain levels roughly the same, but listen to how this one sounds. Yeah, it's got a completely different voice. So same guitar, same pickup, same amp. The only difference there is the first pedal I was playing was the Boss Blues Driver, second one was the full tone plimsoll. So it's not, like I said, I've tried to set the gain levels roughly similar, but it's not about the amount of gain that we've got here, it's about just the general voice. The Blues Driver, a much brighter, toppier sort of sound to it, whereas that plimsoll, the second pedal, has got a lot more happening in the mid-range. Now, I'm not saying one of those is better than the other or one of those is worse than the other. It's completely subjective which one you prefer, the style of playing, style of music that you're playing, kind of guitar you're using and whatnot. Either of those sounds is equally valid. But what I want to talk about is how you could use those sounds in a band situation. So if you had another guitarist in the band who also has a mahogany-bodied teak top, well, probably not teak, but like a Les Paul-y type of guitar, I suppose, with humbuckers going into a similar sounding amp, and he's also using a Boss Blues Driver, and then you come along with this, or I came along with this rig, and I played with my Boss Blues Driver. We're using the same sound, so when he starts playing a rhythm part and I'm trying to play solo over the top of it, the notes that I'm playing just aren't going to come out as cleanly to the audience's ear, because the frequencies that I'm using in the sonic spectrum are the same as what the rhythm guitarist's using. So there's just not as much separation. That sort of scenario, it makes sense. One of the guitarists would be using, say, something like the plimsoll with a lot more mid-range, and the other guitarist to use something like the Blues Driver, which has got a bit more brightness to it, so you can hear the contrast in the guitar tones. And when the two guitars are playing side by side in the mix, you can hear the separation between the two. You can clearly hear the chords underneath, and you can clearly hear the lead line being played over the top. The solution of just turn up the volume for the lead guitar to make it heard against the rhythm guitar, that just doesn't really work out, because then you can't hear the rhythm guitar as cleanly, so you don't get the context that the lead line's being played in. It's all about contrast. The sounds need to complement each other. They need to kind of work together in a band situation. You wouldn't have somebody playing like a wonderfully clean, jangly 12-string like Rickenbacker part, and then for the rhythm, and then someone playing over the top of it with a Les Paul into a Boss Metal Zone or something like that. The sounds need to work in the context of the song, but it's about, this guitarist is kind of using quite a lot of top end for the solo, whereas the rhythm guitarists are using more kind of mid-range frequencies, and you can just hear them. hear them separately. And it's not just about how you fit in with the guitar, it's how you fit in with the other instruments. So, you know, if you've got a drummer going away playing lots of stuff with cymbals, he's going to be taking up a lot of the high end frequencies. He's, you know, really belting away on the floor tom or the kick drum. There's a lot more bass frequency there. So you need to think where that instrument sits in the sonic spectrum. Likewise, bass guitar. Bass, quite a low instrument, but if you've got a bass player who does lots of tapping and slapping, you know, you've got that snappy, poppy sort of sound, that's going to be eating into the high mid-range frequencies as well. So there won't be as much differentiation between him and you if you're using quite a top-endy sort of voice. You see what I mean? It's all about understanding how your sound comes up with certain frequencies and how that kind of sits in the overall spectrum. It's not uncommon to come up with a guitar tone that you love and it sounds great. You know, you're just playing at home, practicing, and you love that sound, go into a band context and suddenly you're lost in the mix because the frequencies that you're using in your sound just don't fit in with the frequencies that the rest of your band are trying to use up. So it's just a case about finding a balance and making sure everyone has their space in the mix. So there's a really simple example there, just using a couple of pedals, using the blues driver and using the plimsoll. I talked in another video about using the controls on the guitar. You know, you've got a tone control on the guitar where you can make it more treble-y or more bassy, but you've also got controls on the amp. So let's talk about those. So I'm just going to go to the dirty channel on the amp now. Now the EQ here is set fairly flat. So when I talk about EQ, I'm talking about, you know, equalization between different frequencies. So on this particular amp, I've got 3 EQ controls. I've got bass, I've got middle, and I've got treble. I can use those to shape the tone of the guitar. Like I say, at the moment, it's all set reasonably flat, the EQ. As Mark Ignici would say, all EQs are around about noon. But have a listen to what happens if I crank up the bass frequency, crank up the treble, and really wind back the middle. Okay, so a bit of an extreme setting now with the bass and the treble on full and the mid on 0. Sounds like this. Yeah, so that's got a lot less, to my mind, that sound's got a lot less body to it. It's a bit fizzy. We've got the treble turned right the way up, and because I'm playing with the overdrive setting, so that's the dirty channel on the amp that you're hearing there. Having the treble up high is really pulling out the harmonics from the overdrive sound. But because I've got the bass up full as well, now by rights you think having the bass up full is going to give some body to the sound, but it's not really. It's got some girth to it, I suppose, because it's got you are hearing the bass frequencies there. But for me, that guitar sound is lacking so much because it's got no mid-range. Let's flip the EQs around, take the bass and the treble down to 0 and turn the mid up full. Yeah, completely different sound. All I've changed there are tone controls. That sound's got a lot more punch to it because it's got some mid-range. Now it's not, I don't think it's a particularly good sound because all it's got is mid-range. It's lacking the bottom end to really hold it together, and it's not cutting through that much because it hasn't got anything really happening in the top end. The treble's kind of choked back. But you can hear the impact that it has on the sound just by 3 simple controls on the amplifier. They give me control over bass, middle and treble. And to get like my sound, it would be a case of tweaking those. So I have some mid-range, but I want some bottom end and I want a little bit of top end, but getting it all kind of nicely balanced out. But when I kind of take that into a band context, I've got to think, well, how have I tweaked the EQ and how does that fit alongside other people that I'm playing with? And I might need to adjust it and have a bit more or a bit less mid-range than I'm used to, just so it kind of fits in the sonic spectrum. So there's something to think about when you're dialing in your tone. We talk about like overdrives and that to give like the voice to your guitar, but the tone control and the EQ stack is just as important, because as well as defining your sound, it kind of controls how it sits alongside the other people that you're playing with. And if you listen to records, so listen to CDs, MP3s, whatever, showing me age there, you listen to what's happening in the sonic spectrum, particularly with guitar parts, you might be surprised at what you hear. You just think, oh, that's a rock band, I'm hearing overdriven guitars. You'd be surprised how often the rhythm guitar, the part that you're hearing, has got a lot less gain than you think. So if you think back to the earlier video that I did about having just the right amount of drive and something, mixing in a bit of clean sound along with your overdriven signal. So say some rhythm parts possibly got a lot more clean in the mix than you might expect, or a lot less overdrive than you expect. Or even things like playing an acoustic guitar. I can think of a few rock songs where it's actually quite a hard rock sort of sound, but if you listen carefully, part of that rhythm track is actually somebody playing an acoustic, because it's a different voice to the other instruments. It's taking up little different parts of the spectrum, so the overall sound is just bigger, because you can hear the individual instruments, you can hear them complementing each other. So think about that, shape your tone, listen to the people that you're playing with, and think about how you fit in alongside them. Okay, I hope you found that useful. If you did, please click the like button down there. If you found it really useful and you want to see other videos that I post onto the channel, then please go down there and click the subscribe button. You're welcome to leave a comment down there as well, but if you've got a specific question that you want to ask me, whether it's about guitar equipment, music theory, gear, anything like that, it's much better if you go here, fill that form in and send your question in through that way. I don't always see the comments on YouTube videos, but questions sent in through that form, I do always see them, so your question will be seen and I'll be able to get around to answering it in a future video. Okay, that's all for now. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you in another video next time. Bye for now.